I want us to become brothers again like we used to be, and for us to find ourselves and bond with each other. Can we agree to that?
Opinions vary.
Welcome to Three Brothers Filmcast. I'm Anton Bergstrom, and I'm here with my brothers,
Anders.
And Aaron.
My last name is the same as my brother's.
In this month, we're discussing George Miller's Furiosa, a Mad Max saga within the larger series of Mad Max films, 1979's Mad Max, 1981's Mad Max 2, or The Road Warrior, 1985's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and 2015's Mad Max Fury Road.
And here we go.
Do you have it in ya to make it epic? So says Chris Hemsworth motorcycle general Dementis to the titular Furiosa, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, near the end of the latest Mad Max movie. Dementis confesses that he sees Furiosa as a companion in nature, someone who's as inwardly empty and outwardly ruthless as himself. He wants to see if she has it in her to finish him off in a way that's epic enough to match their grand antagonistic tale. Miller then has a voiceover narrator offer us alternative possibilities of what happens. Given the metafictional nature of the moment, I think it's worth thinking about that memorable line of dialogue as almost a comment on the trajectory of the Mad Max series as a whole. In a way, the Mad Max series is George Miller's journey to make it epic. This might help explain how the initial movie, which is really more of a car chase B-movie about societal decline, morphed over several films into one of the most visually stunning post-apocalyptic sagas, boasting extremely sophisticated action sequences and compelling, detailed world building. And I think it's clear that Furiosa, subtitled A Saga, is the most self-consciously epic film in the series. Now, I think we have a lot to say about these movies, so I'll hold off on further comments for now.
Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
As a child, my world was forever changed. My mother was magnificent. And he took it all from me.
Who do we have here?
She's from a place of abundance. This is our destiny.
My childhood, my mother, I want them back. I want them back!
But let's start things off a bit differently, shall we? Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say the title of each Mad Max movie, and we'll go in order, and I want you to respond in a few words or no more than a sentence or two, okay? So how could you sum up the movie or your response to the movie briefly? Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
All right.
Good to go.
Okay, we'll go Anders, and then Aaron, and then I'll go for each of them, okay? In that order. So, Mad Max.
I always think about that movie, and I think about Cars, the Pursuit Special, and how violent it is.
Aaron?
I think of it as a exploitation film that we'd probably never talk about if Road Warrior was never made or Mel Gibson didn't become the biggest star in Hollywood.
I have an equation. Low budget car chases plus vigilante violence equals 1979. It's such like a movie of that time period. Okay, Mad Max 2 or The Road Warrior. Anders?
I think it's the one that really sets the template for the post-apocalyptic thing, and it's ultimately, of all of them, the most a Western. An S&M Western, but a Western nonetheless.
Aaron?
Yeah, the template for post-apocalypse, everything from Fallout to The Walking Dead to other neo-Western set in the future. That is cool, but still can't get over how lame its villain is.
Yeah, I basically agree. I think it's Miller's first post-apocalyptic reverie. You know, it's the first one that's actually post-apocalyptic. Okay, Beyond Thunderdome, or Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Anders.
I love it, and it's the most Spielbergian of all Miller's films, and I also love the Tina Turner music.
Aaron?
Yeah, it's Mad Max from The Road Warrior is airlifted into Hook.
Man, you stole my
That's
idea. Okay. I was going to say half Gladiator flick, half Spielberg's Hook. So I think we all agree about this Spielbergian aspect with all the sort of the Lost Boys. Okay, then jumping 30 years ahead, Mad Max Fury Road. Anders?
I mean, I think the film sums itself up, you know, the human impulse reduced to a single thing, survival, right? But it's so focused and intense and streamlined.
Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, it's a movie that shows unrelenting madness in terms of physics and world building. It makes for a memorable action experience.
Yeah. On rewatch, it's still electrifying. It's truly, and this isn't just hyperbole, it's actually jaw-dropping action. And I never feared the enemy in pursuit as much as in this movie. You just dread that they're coming. Okay, and then the most recent one, and then after this, we can spin this into sort of maybe just your overall comments and impressions on Furiosa. But so Mad Max, or Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
Definitely the most epic. It covers an entire or good chunks of a life, and it's I think in some ways might potentially be the richest, but I've only seen it once.
Aaron?
It's the post-apocalyptic actioner as biblical epic.
Yeah. I see that. That's somewhat similar to my comment. So I was saying Conan the Barbarian on motorbikes.
Yeah.
And it's as much sword and sorcery as a Mad Max.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe picking up, Anders, on your comment, and then Aaron, Anders, you had your review out. You loved the movie. You gave it a 9 out of 10. Why don't you just elaborate a bit on the richness that you see in the movie? Because I'm sort of curious, what is it that you think sort of, in some ways, sets it apart even from the other ones?
Well, I think one of it's the scale of the film, right? Like we meet Furiosa as a kid, and then as you said, these characters, we get to see them formed in a way that we don't really in the others, right? I mean, I guess if you take all three of the Mel Gibson ones, you could argue, but I mean, we can get into that later. I think even those ones are a little bit disjointed and hard to place them all into some sort of coherent world in a way. But this one, is also maybe the most close. It's interesting because it's the most closely tied in the way the ending leads right into Fury Road. So it's a prequel in all those ways, right? Like just like the Star Wars prequels, if it's going to be successful, it's what it's got to do is deepen the character motivations, right? Like to make it more mythic. And so some people are going to find that a little bit, I don't know, contrived or something like that, right? Like, oh, this is where she loses her arm. Oh, this is where this happens, right? But what that does is then when you go back and watch the next one, if it's done well, it adds a resonance, right? It adds layers to it in that way.
I think you're right that probably apart from the first Mad Max, which kind of has this, kind of like vigilante movie arc, the other ones are always they're very compressed in terms of their time frame. And we really are just meeting Max at a different point in his
journey,
in his ongoing journey, right? And so you're right. By creating it's a different kind of narrative. It's telling a whole person's life, and then it adds that it's starting to add that the background, the depth to the characters to explain them.
What I find really,
I agreed, but I just say like I agree that I thought that the movie was definitely distinct in terms of what kind of a story it's trying to tell, but I still thought it was like really effective. I wasn't just like completely floored the way I was with Fury Road, but they're very different kinds of movies. And I think this connects then into, Aaron's comment about kind of this bizarre post-apocalyptic biblical epic where, it's trying to sort of show not only the arc of a character, but then also
of the world,
the wasteland, right?
Right. And like the opening, when you get that zoom down from space into Australia, down into the green place, it's like Eden, right? And you got the symbols of the tree and the
You're
peach.
taking the fruit and the
fruit. Yeah. So like it's explicitly, I think, meant to be sort of biblical.
In the desert, the omnipresent desert setting too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, how many Old Testament stories are like a woman getting revenge on a warlord or something?
Yeah.
There's so many, I guess the key difference is that this is a world devoid of any kind of gods, right? It's the people transform themselves into gods, whether it's Dementis or Immortan Joe or whomever, but there's no Valhalla is the construction of the madness. It's not really like a thing that's external to it.
But that way, I think that like some of the characters, like someone like Dementis is like self-fashioning himself as a sort of like epic hero, like a Gilgamesh or someone like that, right? Like
Yes.
larger than life. He's not always successful, and that's, I think, one of the interesting things about Hemsworth's performance is that out of all the villains in all the films, Dementis has the most depth to him, the most interesting,
Far and away. Like,
far and away.
Like Immortan
it's
Joe's a great villain, but
he's
like one
he's
dimensional.
He's a monster.
He's a monster. In the other movies, almost the villains sometimes are just laughable.
They're cartoons, right? Like Master Blaster.
Oh, he's sweet.
Love him. But like Dementis, I think the key thing also is like it's a world where people the world of Furiosa is one in which people are defined by their actions to some degree. And the thing that I think I really liked about the movie, and the reason that I found the pairing of Furiosa and Dementis so interesting, is they're both kind of past that like retreading past that Max went on, right?
So an example
would be like Dementis. Clearly, he lost his family, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he was a cop, motorcycle cop,
one of these road cops.
Who knows? Like the special force guys, but he makes different choices. He chooses to embrace the madness and try to fashion himself as a kind of, warlord. Whereas, and there's a moments where is Furiosa, and that's, I think, the ending that you mentioned in your introduction is like, is she going to embrace that, that narrative, or is she going to, do what like Praetorian Jack and later Max do, and there's that piece of humanity that's left in them, where they're willing to like, sacrifice something for someone else, that kind of thing.
So Aaron, what was your overall take on the movie? Like, you liked it, but
yeah, I really like Furiosa. I think it's a different movie than Fury Road, so it doesn't sustain the level of like thrill that Fury Road does. To be fair, Fury Road's one of the few movies that does that. Like, I think that and
the entire stretch,
the first John Wick movie, are kind of those like, this is an unrelenting 2 hours of action, and that's like John Wick's shorter. It's an hour and it's 100 minutes exactly, but it's that kind of like, once the action starts, it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And it was especially at the time when I think we were going through a real fallow phase for action movies. It was like, oh man, here we go. This is a non-Hong Kong movie that's actually like blows your mind in terms of how it does the action.
Yeah.
That was really thrilling. So Furiosa is not that, even though I will say the central chase with the Octobos's crew with the rig is the Octobos is the guy with the parasailers and stuff.
Yes. Okay.
Is maybe better than any individual sequence in Fury Road in terms of the stunts are just insane.
They're super cool.
Like, I love the little paragliders coming in and stuff, and like Piss Boy and all that shit. Like, it's just really ridiculous and awesome without like retreading ground. But the elements about Furiosa that I like are actually the things that make it it's more simple in a way than Fury Road, but it's also more complicated. So like, and it's all caught up in Dementis. It's the fact that Dementis is way more interested in the other characters, that in some ways the movie does the Fury Road thing where the presumed protagonist is actually this, I'm not going to say a side character, but a co-lead who is the kind of silent witness to the action and is the like moral agent acting upon something they're forced into. They're not really the prime mover of the narrative. Well, the prime mover of the narrative is Dementis. He gets the kind of arc of like, this is his warlord story, and he's going to try and shape the wasteland in his image, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And just like in Fury Road, Furiosa is the one who sets everything in action.
So it reminds me,
but he's the villain here, right?
Yes,
he's not a co-hero.
But so here, some other reference points. Then this is getting me to think about. It's like those. I mean, even though we have a female protagonist, I'm going to use the phrase like the boy's own adventures, where so the young hero is sort of taken up often by a villainous,
it's Treasure
charismatic
Island.
villain. Yeah. So Treasure Island, Long John Silver. Or we could think, a little bit of a
Kim.
Oliver
Dickensian.
Twist, Fagin, sort of a charismatic villain who sort of is enticing, the hero heroine to sort of come and join them and then become them, right?
Yeah.
Like you should become like and be my replacement because they see a lot of potential.
Yeah.
So definitely, you're right. That's definitely what's going on. I think that's a good way to understand Dementis. His charisma, but also the fact that I think in your review, Anders, you did a great job of talking about. He is also terrifying, and like
Well, he is
horrible at
evil.
times. Yeah,
It's
not like he's just misunderstood.
He's just charismatic.
He chooses to make decisions because he wants to be what Immortan Joe and the other warlords are.
Yeah, but he
wants what they have. Yeah.
But his making mistakes, and his mistakes are fallible and foolish,
and kind of funny sometimes.
Which keeps him in the human realm, which makes him sympathetic in a way that Immortan Joe or the Toe Cutter or Humongous can't be,
because he seems like he's a human.
Yeah.
You fabulous thing. You crawled out of a pitiless grave deeper than hell. Only one thing's gonna do that for you. Not hope. Hate. No shame in hate.
I almost think that like Dementis is maybe the best character in any of the movies. In like terms of I think Hemsworth is like amazing in it. And people talk about like, oh, we know he's super funny. It's like, yeah, but I've never seen him scary before and funny. It's like he's pulling new stuff out of the bag and being like, he's going to use his entire leading man charisma to create this like super memorable, kind of cool, kind of goofball villain.
Some of it, I think, is Miller's, experience and writing and thinking about what he wants to do with the characters, but some of it is also Hemsworth seems to be freed by working with Miller by the prosthetics people complained about that sort of I'm like it frees Hemsworth from his handsome face a little bit, and it allows him to take risks and do things that I think otherwise he couldn't do, and also the fact that he can just lean into his Australian accent, his actually own voice and stuff,
they're all appropriately Mad Max because there is just like an insanity that is sort of in all of these movies. They're just, and they'll have characters who do things or say things or look in a way that you're just like, it's so bizarre. And I think the prosthetics, you're right. It allows Hemsworth to enter that crazy George Miller universe rather than sort of still be bound up as this star.
But there's little like when his cape gets dyed red, you're like, oh, he's Thor a little bit, right? But the props, Dementis also has some like fun. His props seem more meaningful. The teddy bear is really important, obviously, but then also his motorcycle chariot, which is so crazy but fun.
Yeah, and the like what do you call it? The microphone he's always using.
Yeah, his microphone.
Because then that ties into this whole fact that he's always putting on a show and trying to project that he's this, the great. He calls himself the Great
Dementis,
right? Yes. He calls himself the Great Dementis.
He calls himself that.
Well, he shifts his name constantly.
Yeah.
He's the Red Dementis for a bit. Does he call himself Dr. Dementis at any point? I can't.
He might.
Maybe.
He shifts what he calls himself, but it's always Dementis. The other thing I'll say is that Furiosa, I think by the nature of it being more sprawling and telling these 5 different chapters, like the clear structure to the narrative and the fact that it's the one that it's operating least in like the real world. If you take first Mad Max is like pretty much in
our world right now.
Our world, right? With a few different changes. And then
they're running out of gas, crime is out of control.
Yeah. Road Warrior's like one step past that and starting to skew a bit, but it's not entirely off of that. And it just gets progressively weirder.
By Thunderdome, you're into almost also a Terry Gilliam-esque.
Yeah.
But there's a the way the camera moves and then also the sets and stuff, they have that sort of nightmarish quality. Hallucinatory.
Yeah. Well, I do like the structure, the 30 minutes for each. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, I do love the comment Lex G made where it's like, you love chapters because it tells you how much longer you have to watch the movie, where it's like, I've almost got through it. Yes. Even if you're really liking it, you're satisfied. You're like, okay, I can do another 30.
One other thing I want to say about Furiosa that I maybe didn't clarify as much in my review, and that maybe some people who go to see the movie are surprised by, is that, Anya Taylor-Joy, who is billed as like the star of the film, doesn't show up for like an hour until the 3rd chapter. Right, like the young actress who plays the younger Furiosa has to carry a lot of the movie for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, but I think that actually Miller, and maybe this is getting too much off of Furiosa and some of our other discussion, but he's actually, I think, interested in working with children. Obviously, Thunderdome has the kids. He's made kids movies.
Yeah, we forget that Happy Feet, which also starts with zooming into a continent. I think it zooms into Antarctica and then also begins really insanely, just sort of.
So I'm just saying Miller has that, I think he's capable and competent in working with like children and like family characters and stuff.
I thought he got good performances out of. So it's Lila Brown.
Yeah,
is the young Furiosa, and there's one other actress when she's even younger. No, or am I just confused about the way the makeup?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I think that maybe it's hard to tell.
So I believe in the middle scene, for a couple middle scenes, when it's like out there goes dangling to like work on the rig, and then when she's like working secretly, I'm pretending to be a boy. Before that, I believe what they're doing is they're using like some technology stuff to meld Anya Taylor-Joy's face with the younger actor, so that it looks like a 12-year-old Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, she did look very young.
Because she goes from being like about 8 or 9 to then 12 to then like a teenager to like her late 20s, 30s. Yeah.
At the same way that they know for a fact that they are, they layer Anya Taylor-Joy's voice with a bit of Charlize Theron's.
At the end, they actually have Charlize Theron. Yeah. Right.
But you're saying they layer the voice at times, or throughout.
Like throughout the movie, but it gets gradually more towards the end, is that you're getting more Theron's voice coming in.
Wild.
Yeah.
But it's like using like AI tools and stuff to like literally blend them.
What's interesting is that this also tells you that he's much more concerned with, and the fact that he uses the footage from Fury Road in the credits, that he's much more interested in blending making these two films of a piece in a way the other ones aren't quite.
Yes.
Because in the other ones you get like, obviously the recasting of Max from Mel Gibson to Tom Hardy, but also you have actors who reappear, right? Like Hugh, what's his name? The guy who plays Toe Cutter in the first also plays Morton Joe. You have the gyrocopter pilot reappears, basically the same actor in Thunderdome.
Lackey Holm?
Yeah. Yeah. So like, it's interesting, like when it was a series of 4, you almost get a sense in which you could see it as like just different takes on this same character, and the repeating motifs, and even some of the supporting characters are repeated and stuff like that.
No, I think that's a great opportunity to sort of move this conversation wider into the whole series, because I think there's 2 things you guys brought up that are worth exploring. Because like, one, what is the relationship between these films? Is this a chronological story in any sense? I think you're very right that Fury Road and Furiosa are meant to be taken as companion works. They're in the same telling, the same saga in some sense. But I don't know if that's the case with the other ones. And then the other thing is just like, what do we make of Max as a character? That was a little bit of an earlier thing you brought up. But so like, when I was rewatching these movies, I was just struck by how much the original Mad Max doesn't seem of a piece with the rest of the movies. And it, in my sort of comment, it reminds me more of these car chase movies of the 70s,
absolutely,
these vigilante movies
Vanishing
of the 70s.
Point,
and it's not even post-apocalyptic, right? Like the world still has some structure.
As I would say, it's a world in which you might actually go on a beach vacation after your cop partner is killed, and you take time off. There's no such thing as time off in Mad Max.
It's a world where people didn't believe in heroes anymore, Max. Fife. His weird gay daddy boss. It's
wearing his tie with.
I don't understand. The movie.
Watering plants.
It's the late 70s, Aaron. That's all you can say.
No, but it's just so funny because it's like, I don't know a lot about George Miller, but like, if you were to be like, George Miller is extremely gay, you'd be like, yeah, I get it. But it's the same way like Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah.
He's not gay.
He's
but
just
his movies
Australian.
are so gay coded.
They're just Australian, both of them. That's all.
No, it's true.
Sorry, just on that moment though, also like both those directors also do this thing where like the opening of their movies sometimes are like so insane that it's like hard to understand. Like watching Fury Road again, I was like, the first like 5 to 10 minutes of that movie, you're just like, what on earth is going on?
Yeah, I remember
It's so
Dad
hyper.
was like baffled by it.
But like Norman does that in every movie too. Like,
Elvis, the opening of just like chaos morphing into the sign and into Elvis, Tom Hanks's brain, and like it's. I mean, not to slander all my Aussie colleagues, but like they're from Australia, a country that is literally like sun-baked to the point of like, is there something? Literally, they didn't have an ozone layer
in Land
for
of
how
Oz,
long?
right? Like the sort of the upside down land, right? Like,
but that's like the other thing, like because Mel Gibson is the original Mad Max,
Max
Rockatansky. It's easy to be like he's mad because he's getting revenge, kind of thing. And in the first one, that's kind of true. But in the others, it's like he's kind of gone loopy,
Yeah, he's
like,
mad like a hatter.
He's mad, madness, like insanity.
Through the Looking Glass, like it's a
but
wonderland.
It's also like this kind of thing where, something that is talked about with like in relation to Hamlet, and I always think of like that line in. Have you guys either of you seen The Ninth Configuration, William Peter Blatty's film?
Yeah,
I haven't. I thought you were going to bring up Mel Gibson's Hamlet, but
no, but hey, it's not bad. But because hey, good connection. But the idea though that in an insane world, the only appropriate response is to act insane.
Yeah.
What's actually truly insane, like disgusting and insane, is to pretend like everything is normal and to just continue on in life, right? So like, is Hamlet feigning? No, he's actually behaving exactly as you would expect him to if he saw his father's ghost and found out his uncle had murdered him and all this stuff, right? Same way, like your family's dead, the world's falling apart, there are no governments, it's just a bunch of warlords, you just go nuts. Like,
so there is kind of this Max Hamlet connection. I mean, so that makes Max, he is such a strange character because in some sense he's often like he's often sort of just like the negative space for other characters. Like for someone who like the series is named after him. I know he's not in Furiosa except very briefly. Do you remember?
Yeah. Up on the hill,
the cameo, right? He brings her back, doesn't he? Find her body in the desert. So that's interesting. Little connection point. But
that would also have been like a decade before.
That's very like George Lucas prequels to like do a little connection point like that.
See, but, and I like that stuff, and other people don't. But I like that.
The shrinking world syndrome.
That's
some people would say. No, I know.
But like like Max, he's maybe his most compelling in The Road Warrior as a character. Because we're following him alone for a long time. We start to see some of his habits and patterns. But like in Thunderdome, and he has the dog, actually, which helps because I think it creates sort of a a character. It's a way for the character to have some personality. In the first one, I like again, he's just kind of driving his car around and then gets revenge. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, his partner is almost as much the main character for the first part of the movie.
But I don't know if like I like this series, but like I don't know if like Max is like a great character.
But I don't even know. I don't know if this is a great series so much as just an iconic series.
Yeah, or you're right. What are we counting if we're talking about? Like, I don't think I'd call.
I know Anders likes these movies more than me. Like, I think but I even don't like Fury Road as much as you. Like, I think it's very good. I think it's one of the great action movies the last decade. But there are elements of it I'm not a huge fan of, and it's the thing that it's a through line throughout all these movies with Miller is that like. Anytime he's dealing with anything in the human level, I find it corny. And so like the brides of Immortan Joe in Fury Road are corny. And people are like, it's such a nuanced movie about like rape culture and stuff. They were reading it through Trump lens in retrospect and stuff, right? And you're like, yeah, I kind of don't love that he's trying to make like a feminist statement that is like a really boiled down thing in this action movie because it's like you have the like emotional peril of these characters at all moments. That's enough to feel it. You don't need some kind of like weird commentary layered over top, considering that other movies don't really have that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's as central as you like. I think as you.
No, it's not. It's not central, but that's why I still think it's a great movie. I'm just saying that like there's little elements where I don't think Fury Road's like perfect. I don't think any of these movies are.
I think it's funny, like the goofy language that the bridesmaid, oh, he's a slagger or whatever and stuff like that. I think that's
line.
I think that stuff's funny. Like it's funny.
Yeah, but here's
the thing about the most recent time watching Fury Road, the reason I think it actually works is actually the relationship they ended up getting between Nux and I forget which one of the
road
Riley
yeah.
Keough.
Yeah.
Elvis's granddaughter.
It's touching.
Speaking of another Elvis connection, there you go.
So here's a question for, I guess, both you guys, but like at any moment in these movies when the characters put their heads together, do you actually feel that it's like moving, or do you think that that's kind of lame? Because I think it's kind of lame.
I think it's a movie thing. I think it's a trope. I don't think it's realistic.
I'm not saying realistic. I'm saying like I see it and I'm just like, that's corny. But it's the same way that I find a guy who's wearing like just a loincloth and a big like leather mask. I'm like, that's corny.
Well, I think
it's okay. But I would challenge you, Aaron, that there's a lot of things that you like in other movies that people think's corny and that you defend.
For sure. For sure. But this is the thing, is that I'm taking the movies on. I guess what the thing is that I wouldn't ever. I think the people who read, say, Fury Road or Mad Max 2 as like these are all-time great chase movies, action movies, and like they're relatively really stripped down movies. I agree with that. But when people say, I think Fury Road is like one of the great statements of the last decade, I'm statement? What are you talking about?
No, but it makes the statement. What they're not understanding is the statement is the craft.
Yeah.
So, it's not in all this like stuff you're reading on top of it.
But I think so that's fair. But so that's maybe a hesitation on Fury Road. But I think Fury Road's the only one where I'm like, this is a great movie. Furiosa might be a great movie. I need to revisit it and see how it percolates and stuff. And then I'll just give you the quick takes on the others. Like I used to not like the two movies that I'd seen. Like I used to think they were like bad. And I think it was partially that my taste when I watched them as like, 18, 19, I just wasn't able to get on the level with the goofiness. And I also think that I didn't appreciate like the craft. I kind of just watched it as like, I just want, I'm a big fan of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And I just want a movie to like excite me. And the more excited I am, I just align that with, clearly it's better made. Right. Which is not true. The movies are really well made. Even Mad Max, the first one,
for the budget, it's astonishing. Like,
yeah. But like, I might like Thunderdome the most, the first three, because it's the one with the most personality. And the issue with it is that it repeats the climax of 2 to lesser extent. It has an anti-climax ultimately, and it kind of never gets better than the Thunderdome scene.
Yeah.
Well, Road Warrior is a movie that reminds. Sorry, I just want to get these out while it's in the head.
Yeah. Wrap up on
Road Warrior. Is like is a great chase movie but I'm not. I just don't think it's anything more than like a cool chase movie and setting the like post-apocalyptic template in terms of the world. Even though I don't find the world, I find something like Fallout or something that came after and is clearly inspired by it a more interesting variation of that world than just like leather daddies on bikes.
But I think that's what you're pointing out is that doing it first is something.
Okay. It is, absolutely. And then I think Mad Max, the first one, honestly is just kind of a forgettable exploitation.
I think I like the first one more than both of you, but
the chain in those handcuffs is high tensile steel. It'll take you 10 minutes to hack through it with this. Now, if you're lucky, you could hack through your ankle in 5 minutes. Go.
You're mad, man. You think I look silly, don't you?
Okay, I need to jump in and comment on Fury Road and Furiosa, a couple of comments, and then before I get into my ranking and yours, Anders. So what I just was going to say is that like on rewatching Fury Road, I was amazed by how much I liked the movie and how much I hate modern like agenda-driven political statement movies. And that movie escapes everything that like if that movie was made today not by George Miller, it would be so obnoxious.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
But when I also rewatching some of the earlier ones, it's like these movies are full of kind of surface level social commentary. And that's why I'd say is like when people are like, Fury Road is this amazingly deep, sort of like feminist text. You're like, I don't really buy that, because I think like he deals with sort of the role of men and women, in that whole comment of like, who ruined the world. The kind of the same way he talks about gasoline and like coming out of the 70s and the earlier films. It's not really actually super substantial and deep, but he's trying to cut into sort of different, social commentary.
Yeah.
But
he's using the social commentary to just build it up rather than as the main thing.
That's true.
But because I think that Fury Road, it's like, that's just a piece, but it's not like the engine of it. And this is actually where I would disagree, that I actually find in Fury Road and in Furiosa that like when the characters do put their heads together, that those moments work for me. And it's partly because I find these worlds to be so utterly ruthless and horrible that if there's any small moments of sort of like grace extended to another character or human affection, like, I appreciate in Furiosa that Praetorian Jack and her don't have to go have a love scene and stuff like that. That it's just like these characters just recognizing that they like can recognize each other as a human being and not just a hunk of meat or a slave or a tool. Because what I see in these, especially in the later two, is that it's like it's pure it's power, right, to in exploitation of other people to the max,
stripped to nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Stripped to nothing. So people literally become like, we have our milkers, everyone's just like reduced into a function.
Literally the people walk to turn the gears, right? Like,
of
the machine.
And so anytime someone
that's why I find
recognizes
the
someone
capable and Nux
as a
relationship
human, a full human, right? They're like, it's something nice. I'd have to think more about Furiosa and how this fits in with this whole bizarre kind of Garden of Eden narrative. Because now I'm like, starts in kind of an Eden, ends with a bizarre tree growing out of the villain. What do we make of that? Anyway, fascinating symbolism. The first Mad Max, I don't think it's a good movie. To jump into my ranking, like I rewatched it again. I think like I don't dislike the movie. I could probably watch it again and somewhat enjoy it, but like it just doesn't really work for me. It's kind of like all over the place. It's so messy.
But don't you think it's because the like relationship with the wife there's nothing there? They literally just kind of frolic.
In that one, right? And we spend a whole chunk of time. It's like she's just in that one. I'd say like it feels like kind of a vehicle to have the revenge.
It
like
it
in
literally
a lot
is. It literally is. It's an
It's
exploitation vehicle,
as
right?
Tarantino would say it's a revenge-o-matic.
Yeah, but so Tarantino again, he's maybe the connoisseur of exploitation, but his taste is so bad. So like when he talks about these movies, I don't know. He might like think it sucks, and then he like loves some like junky movie made for $200 by some guy who was arrested.
But that's what Mad Max
after.
is. It literally was made for like nothing, and like
no, I know he filmed on weekends, but it's impressive in that sense.
For sure.
No, Anton. So I'm just jumping in here, like because your comments about Fury Road and stuff, like I get that. I guess it's just those moments. The emotional thing that overwhelms me in Fury Road is like the terror, the adrenaline. It's never a like I love the bond between Furiosa and Mad Max. I like the moment where he gives her the gun. That's the best moment between them, where it's like this is the bond. And I do find Nux like touching.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He has a touching arc.
Because and as he even starts to get more color and less pale and like shed his like war boy, half-blood like life and like to recognize, but he also recognizes that he can't survive, right? Like, and so he finds his meaning in the relationship with Capable, the Riley Keough's character, and then in his sacrifice, right?
Yeah, well, in that his sacrifice is key because thematically, right, it's all about this world where everything's survival, and people will do anything to survive. And so, if someone will actually sort of voluntarily sacrifice, that becomes sort of like an act that goes against
only in a good cause though, because remember in Furiosa the guy who jumps the war
that's
boy.
what they do.
You're right. Yeah.
But that's why it's important. What Nux is doing is redeeming the notion of like sacrifice in Valhalla.
Yeah. The bad, the bad sacrifice, right? The bad kamikaze sort of explosion.
Yeah. Anyways, I didn't want to take it over. I just want to acknowledge, Anton, like I think you're right. It's just those elements don't hit as much for me in them, which is why I would never I wouldn't put Fury Road as like my favorite movie of that year or something. But I'll let you get back to like Road Warrior and the others.
Okay, so Thunderdome, like I like it probably the way I like Hook, which I like Hook. I like Hook. But like, you know, like there's stuff in them like it's kind of silly. I actually really like Master Blaster. What's the dwarf's name?
Well, he's Blaster.
Oh, sorry, he's Blaster.
And Master's the big guy.
Yes. Okay. No, like that character is actually a great character. I really like the way two characters, but they're sort of like a symbiotic.
And they control the power and stuff. I like Bartertown's cool.
And Tina Turner like is on not rewatch, but like I knew she was in this, and when I was watching it, maybe I've seen parts of it before. It seemed vaguely familiar. Her character's actually like cool.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like sometimes we have like it could again. I thought I would dislike her in it, but you know, having sort of like a musical talent sort of all of a sudden be in this movie. But Thunderdome, I think it's uneven. It leans a little heavily into the Lost Boys or whatever we call them.
Yeah.
And then it gets very dreamlike and strange.
Yeah.
You know, at the end, the end's it's kind of like a great sequence, but it's also like really strange and it seems like not of a piece with the rest of the Mad Max world. But like that's sort of like, you know, the telling of the story and how it ends. Road Warrior when I rewatch,
or maybe not. We'll come back to that. Let's come back to that.
Okay, and then Road Warrior. Okay, I've been scrolling back through my movie journals. I actually can't tell if I've ever watched Road Warrior back in the day, because when I was watching it, there was nothing in it where I was like, I remembered. Maybe I just watched it and forgot it. But anyway, I think Road Warrior is like really good. I don't think it's like a great movie, but I think it's like a really good car chase movie. For like its budget and stuff, the action sequence, the car chases are pretty impressive. And I think Mel Gibson's his most like compelling as Max in that one. And I like how it's stripped down that one is too. Anyway, so I'd rank probably be Fury Road, and then probably Road Warrior, Furiosa, Thunderdome, Mad Max. Mad Max is the only one where like, yeah, I don't need to necessarily watch it again. But
you guys are making me think I need to watch it again. But to beef up my defense of it.
Did you like it like on your original watch from what you
remember? Yeah, like I like it. Yeah, but like
I like it more than
movie.
When I first watched it, I was like, "What? This is like the movie that like spawned this all." I was so like surprised.
I think we're all like spoiled by things like Star Wars that comes out so perfect in its original that, you know. Anyway, do you want me to? I'll rank them now.
Yeah.
I guess.
You rank yours.
If I'm ranking them today, I probably have to do Fury Road first, just because I've seen it so many times, and it is like, I wouldn't say a perfect film, but it's very entertaining and super well made in a way that, you know, it's sort of like one of those films like when I rewatch even like say like Children of Men or something like that, where you're like, man, technically it's like almost like flawless execution at least. And then right now I'm though debating whether if on rewatches I might like Furiosa next.
I thought you were putting Thunderdome next, Anders.
Well, no, then I was gonna say, and then so like those two, and then it's really hard for me to choose between Road Warrior and Thunderdome, just because even though you're right, the Road Warrior is so stripped down, so like iconic and all that stuff, but I think there's a lot of stuff that's actually that in the popular imagination of Mad Max is actually more from Thunderdome, and even like the fight at the end of Thunderdome, which kind of repeats Road Warrior. Like, you know, let's take like some direct pop culture, you know, adaptation of these things. I don't know if you guys remember the music or have seen the music video for California Love with Tupac and Dr. Dre from like '95. It's totally like a Mad Max. Like they're driving around the desert in like rag and like leathers and stuff like that. And but it's totally the vehicles and stuff from like Thunderdome. Like, and it's very strong Thunderdome vibes. So I think that movie actually, despite people often like sort of making fun of it, and you know, it is Spielberg. It even had like the Drew Struzan poster and everything, right?
You're totally right.
There's more there.
Just to jump in, but you're totally right. You should expand on this, but you're like, it is much better than kind of the common sort of like, oh, Thunderdome. Like, I think it's just like, it's not a joke. The movie's not a joke.
And here's what it is though. And it's, I think, Aaron, some of your discomfort with the way people sort of fawn over something like Fury Road or the original Mad Max 2 is that like they have this idea that Miller is like serious and like making great statements and things like that, when like Miller's a sentimentalist. Like all his other films, that if you've seen them, are extremely sentimental.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that. Like even in their insanity, like Babe Pig in the City, the sequel, is, you know, how you can combine like the insanity of like, as I say, a Gilliam-esque kind of like mash of like cities with the sort of heartfelt emotions that you had in the first Babe is like only George Miller could like combine those two things together. And did either of you see 3,000 Years of Longing?
No.
His last film?
No.
It's also like, I think a reason a lot of people didn't like that movie, it has amazing visuals. You know, it has three stories told by this genie to this academic, you know, of like King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, you know, ancient battles in like Persia and like the Middle East and like with big armies and a great special effects and stuff like that. But it's a sentimental movie about like these two characters falling in love and love over centuries and things like that. And it's like, I think people didn't like it because it's too sappy, but I actually thought it was really good. When I finally caught up with it, I was like, oh, why didn't I go see it in big screen? You know, but I think that people misunderstand Miller, like in that sense.
I think that's a good point.
But I mean, in that sense, is it possible that because Miller is best known for spawning a world that is deranged, that they assume that he's some kind of deranged genius, when in actuality people think he's David Cronenberg, but he's actually James Cameron.
Yeah, like he's also a medical doctor.
No, I know, but in the sense of like his storytelling. Yeah, he was a medical doctor for 7 years.
He got interested in making Mad Max because he was like treating car accident victims.
Yeah, he's actually a very interesting story.
Yeah,
but like his impulses go towards that populist, conventional, almost sappy approach. He's not, despite how twisted aspects of his world are, and it's not twisted.
Disturbing like Cronenberg at all.
But it's not intellectual at all either.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Spielberg, Cameron, Carpenter, those are the guys that he's more.
Yeah, Carpenter, especially in Mad Max 2. Heavy Carpenter vibes.
Well, James, we all know my quote that James Cameron is just if Spielberg and Carpenter had a kid.
It's true.
James Cameron.
I might prefer watching Thunderdome because I like the goofy aspects in it, where I think they work really well. But like, I think Mad Max 2 is better. You're doing your ranking though.
Yeah, no, I did. I don't
Mad
know
Max
that
is the worst, right? Yeah,
and Mad Max is the worst, but I still like
it.
Like, I don't think it's like one of the great films of the 70s at all, but like, I think there's stuff of merit there, and it's. But I think what throws people off is, as you said, like it's so. You can pair the other twos together, you know, like Fury Road, Furiosa, Road Warrior, Thunderdome. The original one, like it could just be, as you said, this sort of like pseudo social decline, revenge-matic, you know, but that's notable because it's Mel Gibson and has sweet car chases.
Does the Road Warrior series, the Mad Max series, does it set the template for post-apocalyptic in this sense, or is there something else before? And
the only other things I can think of are zombie movies.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead, George Romero.
And they're not that advanced, those early ones, right? Like they're still in the.
Well, Dawn of the Dead's only like 4 years before Mad Max 2.
But what I mean is also like in terms of the events within the story world, right? Like it's happening. The downfall's happening.
You're in the
middle. It's not like
it's
not year 20 of the zombie apocalypse.
Well, Day of the Dead and stuff, but
But still, even Day's not. How far along is Day?
It's a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah, but that was also Mad Max came out before.
No, it's true. It's true. I think Mad Max is probably the original, aside from there's probably some really low budget.
Yeah.
There's probably short stories and stuff.
There's other Ozploitation. That's the other thing, is that so Mad Max, the first one, is like an Ozploitation film. And it's
from the Cars That Ate
Paris. It's a lot like that. And it even takes the vehicles from it.
The Peter Weir.
Yeah, the Peter Weir 74 movie, which isn't very good.
I gotta see that though.
It's not
Peter
good.
Weir, so yeah.
Well, Peter Weir's his other movies are incredible.
Australian directors, right?
Yeah.
George Miller.
Peter Weir's the great one, but like Picnic at Haney Rock, Beguiling, The Last Wave, truly one of the most like interesting movies of that era.
My life fades. The vision dims. All that remains are memories. I remember a time of chaos, ruined dreams, this wasted land. But most of all, I remember the road warrior, the man we called Max.
Sorry, I'm just going to throw something out about Mad Max 2 and Thunderdome, and I want to know whether you think this is accurate at all in terms of the approach to production value, but also the tone.
Sorry, with Mad Max 2, Road Warrior versus...
And Thunderdome.
Okay, yep.
So Mad Max 2 reminds me of take the action out, okay? Just world building value, production design, and the approach to its like visual tone. It reminds me of an original series episode of Star Trek, especially with the way that the leader of the community operates, with the whole idea of like, I could imagine instead of Max, it's one of the crew members. It's Kirk down there, and he has to join with this village and help them against a villain. And there's a clear goal, and there's this, you're an outsider, whatever, right? But even just the way it approach, like they all wear white, and they're all kind of identified by their visuals, and there's little markers of how the world work. It's not actually very deep in the way it understands the world, but it's very kind of iconic. And then Thunderdome is an episode of Next Gen.
Actually, or
Voyager.
Well, it's Next Gen, or it's Trek movies,
well,
like
Undiscovered
Country, Undiscovered Country,
yes,
things like that.
Final Frontier.
Yeah.
So it's original Trek,
Desert
but
stuff.
movies.
Yeah, the movie Trek. But I could also see like there's aspects of
Next
kind of
Generation.
like
but Next Generation and the movie Trek are very similar.
Yeah,
so.
they are, but it's because it's the same produced
era.
It's
Berman,
the Berman era. But no, the other element is that despite like original series Star Trek is not like R-rated and TNG is PG kind of thing, but there is this idea that it goes from hard sci-fi to a little more family friendly. It does take a deliberate step because Star Trek was never envisioned as a family show. Well, Next Gen is a family show, clearly.
Well, as child character.
Well, remember the Enterprise has a families on it. Like that's it's this.
The original Enterprise did not.
Yeah,
but the other dynamic then there is that like Trek the TV show, original Trek to say the movies.
Yeah.
Especially the later ones, like say 4, 5, 6. It's also like we forget when I was rewatching those, like I feel like a lot of fantasy science fiction, Thunderdome's 85. This period is so rich for the set design, the production design, putting stuff on screen. Like, there's throwaway like scenes and characters in some of the later Trek movies that are as good as like anything in any other Trek in terms of just like like someone designed this character and he like walks in for one scene. But like Thunderdome's like that too, where like Bartertown has a lot going on in the background. Like,
isn't 1985 is also Brazil? Terry Gilliam was Brazil, and did Undiscovered Country or Voyage Home come out that year too?
No,
or was it 86?
Undiscovered Voyage Home is 87, 89 is Final Frontier, 91 is Undiscovered Country.
Okay.
So Search for Spock's 83. Yeah. No, 84. Yeah. 84.
But it solidly fits into that era. Yeah.
It's this it's once Star Wars and Empire have sort of like
it's the post Return of the Jedi world.
Things off. Yeah. And it's like a boom of like sort of these richly visualized and developed sort of science fiction and fantasy. Like because you go to those movies and you're like, you compare them to your average like sort of sci-fi fantasy now that you watch, and you're like, it's so boring, the world like visualized.
Yeah, and there's no internal logic to it.
It's partly the CGI, honestly. Actually,
no, it often because
not that it's that people use it as a shortcut instead of like using it to enhance.
Well, look at Furiosa.
Or Fury Road. Like these are movies where like there's tons of CGI, but
but you can do it.
Look at Gastown. Look at the Bullet Farm. Yeah. Those are not real, and they are very evocative, cool places. Especially
the other action scene that I thought was really good in Furiosa, which has a connection to Spielberg, was in Bullet Town, because it's like this spiral going down to the bottom of the mine. It reminds me of in Tintin when we get also that action sequence that keeps going down and down towards I don't
And he's racing the
remember what the
motorcycle down.
exact setting is.
Oh, and like,
And it has a crane. There's a crane.
and there's a
as well.
crane,
That's
and
a
they're
fun
like, there's all
scene.
this sort of stuff, mayhem, and both of them are just very like, to me, like, you know, it's an example of Miller's, someone like Spielberg, that they're able to sort of like, they lay out a geography for whatever sort of action sequence setting, you know, even if it's like a moving thing, like, you know, the big rigs, you have a clear sense of how these things, like where things are on them and how they operate, and then within that, then they have such inventive, amazing like movements around it. But it's always it's just this combination, like in Fury Road, but also in Furiosa, you're like this combination of like, it's wild, but I always understand where everything is.
Yeah, very true.
And it's an amazing combo. But I even thought that, you know, back to like Road Warrior, Thunderdome, those are also very well choreographed, you know, action sequences. And I was thinking back to Road Warrior, like, must have been really difficult at that stage with that sort of a budget to even get that many cars and things moving. And they use it sometimes with these overhead shots where he's like up on this mountain, and you can see guys driving around.
So one thing I'll say about,
but that also reminds me of old trucks.
Yeah, Miller throughout the movies, it's most noticeable in Furiosa because he uses the shot constantly, but like he does understand there's that specific like forward momentum shot where he will crane down just like on the jib, right, and he'll just go down a bit and forward, and then everything moves and blasts in a line so that you get the like lines going out. And that shot is so often in Furiosa, like so often, but it's used really well because he gets the big red sands coming up. But even in the original Mad Max, there's a couple scenes where he does that with Toe Cutter's gang, and it's just like he knows how to place the camera as the kind of phantom carriage thing, right, for train movement. But that combination of that movement with the like jib swing and forward momentum and like like these parallel lines moving out, it's now that I've retroactively revisiting these, right, it's like that visual approach is there, and he knows how to film a chase scene even from Mad Max. And the like Mad Max 2 chase is really, really good. Like it is one of the best chase scenes of the 80s for sure.
Yeah. And Thunderdome even includes, if I'm thinking, remembering correctly, Thunderdome includes a couple of those small, like really fast cuts where you show like parts of the car, like, and you're like, when you're like, you know, to sort of like drive the energy, you know, like now that you sort of take to be kind of like, you know, Darren Aronofsky and people pioneer, but you're like, actually, like, I guess if you're going back, like Miller's like doing some of these like really fast cuts to show like the energy pumping as you build up the chase or whatever.
Definitely.
So maybe where things, to sort of wrap things up, like how are we to understand? We didn't sort of, we've talked a bit about it, but like, what are we to make of this series, and what's the relationship between these movies? Should we understand this as just kind of like a collection? You know, in some sense, Furiosa sets forward this idea that perhaps, you know, these are the stories of, you know, someone like the history man telling about Max, about Furiosa. And the way that when someone's telling a story, things can change, you know, that this isn't like a continuity driven universe.
Right. Exactly.
This is just,
I think that's
rather
really important.
Storytelling, and things will change. And that's why the first Mad Max can be this sort of social decline. And then all of a sudden we're later, and we're sort of, you know, he's this lone, you know, the
road warrior,
the lonely wanderer in the desert. Yeah. The man with no name. And then in Thunderdome, we
Teach
can change it
war.
again. And all of a sudden we have a barter town, like, you know, and he's, you know, he has camels at the start of Thunderdome.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a car.
I do love how prevalent camels are within like Aussie culture.
So like gyrocopters.
Oh, I want the gyrocopter actually after watching Mad Max 2 again.
Well, in the way that guy who plays
Bruce Spence,
sorry, the name but he's in both those movies.
But he's different
character. Same character.
And Lord of the Rings.
But that sort of stuff reminds me of like when someone's making up a story that they tell their kids or something.
Yeah, exactly. That, like, that's what I was trying to get at.
The gyrocopter guy can sort of come in and like it's kind of a different incarnation of this character.
Yep. And that's why the end of Thunderdome, as weird as it is,
yes, you're right,
is the scene of them telling these stories. Yeah. Like, and so Fury Road is just people 30 years later telling one of those stories again, right? But the conventions and the technology and the way that you tell a story is shaped by 2015 rather than by the 80s.
So there's there even, I can't remember, what are the exact, do you remember the lines that she sort of says when she's like, because, you know, it's like an oral tradition, so they're repeating these lines at the end. But then in some sense, like there's almost echoes of that when Dementis says this whole, like, you know, do you have it in you to make it epic? Like it's again, this almost like this oral tradition that people are reciting.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing, is like with the use of the history man and the history man as the narrator for Furiosa, and the like clear metatextual thing of you seeing Dementis getting killed in various different ways. Like Miller plays his hand, right? Like that's clearly his understanding of his own series. It's a bunch of fables, like, and that people tell to understand the dysfunction around them, the chaos around them, right? You make this little story and then you retell it, and it doesn't, the continuity or the lore does not matter at all.
And that's what I actually find that so refreshing.
It's cool.
Frankly. Because in a world that is now obsessed with lore, where things that are even like one-off
Star Wars has been
movies,
absorbed by it.
Fans or even like consider the way that, you know, like just riffing off what Max Reed wrote about Civil War, people's complaints about like,
how does this work?
Oh, this doesn't make sense, and how does this work? And I'm like, you're missing the point. It's a fable about, you know, a war in America kind of thing. Like the lore does, like people are so obsessed with lore that they miss what's right in front of them. And I think that kind of thing is counter to myth making.
Absolutely. But it's interesting because it's one of these things that it's a chicken and egg, right? Where is it the fans who want the lore and that's driving the studios to react to it? Or is it the fact that the writers themselves, like the main thing that you're taught now is to build a Bible for a story you're telling, and it's the most important aspect of the Bible is actually the internal interconnections that you can spin off, because the Bible is supposed to be, here's your blueprint to how to write a season, because now you understand all the web of connections between characters and events and places. You can now just spin that off in whichever way, even if it's not the person who originated doing it.
But I kind of I just want to say something about that.
Fans but I'm saying is like, is it fans becoming screenwriters doing that, or is it the studios reacting?
We
to
also
fans?
see it in like Harry Potter fandom,
or J.K. Rowling did
like,
it.
J.K. Rowling, if I really don't like when someone like doesn't put something in the text.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's not,
you kind of have to put it
extra
in the text.
textual stuff. It's not, it's not real.
There's a sense that in 2000,
but then the fans jump on that, and then they build their like even the notion of like headcanon and stuff, like
shipping and stuff, and like this.
And it's
But another way to think of this would be that in 2008, when movies became the dominant medium for superhero storytelling, with Iron Man and The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
So we will often tell a story that, well, that means that, like, you know, comics turned into movies, but in some sense, movies turned into comics.
Yeah.
And all the things that define sort of the comic continuity now defines all sorts of fandom beyond superheroes, but any sort of franchise mechanism. And everyone's
even beyond things that we would originally have thought of as franchises.
And then this is even beyond. I think these are good. I think these are really good points, Aaron, about like, you know, the actual sort of mechanics of the writer's shop. But on some sense, it's also then an economic model, because then it becomes how every property, you know, content is managed, that they want to create it and manage it in this sense.
Anton,
so that you're like, you're going to have to watch all these shows, because then you'll understand the continuity.
And what's great about Mad Max is you can watch Fury Road without ever having seen any of them.
As our dad.
Pick any of them up.
It doesn't matter.
Them all. You could even watch Furiosa without having seen the others.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing. It is.
But Anton, to your comment, it's the James Carville. It's the economy, stupid, right? Like it's always in our modern world, it boils down to that.
Yeah.
And the other aspect about the comic bookification of stuff is, and this is a economics thing too, is like, however much I like comic books, let's remember, what is the primary purpose of a comic book? It's to make you buy the next one and to sell the ads that fill half the pages. Half of a comic book physically, tactily, is not a story, it's ads.
People who haven't read a lot of comics forget how many ads.
Well, they read the graphic novel.
One of the fun things about going back and reading my old comics is, these ads from like 2001 or 1997. Like,
MTV ad, Much Music ad, or like you get the Big Shiny Tunes like in there.
No, it's
fun.
no, that's a good point. But that's something I like appreciate about Miller across a lot of his stuff. He's really focused on the movie that he wants to make at the moment. Like, it is kind of like Babe.
He's an actual artist.
First Babe. I know he didn't direct Babe. He just produced it, but like, it's a great film. But it's even kind of weird as a film based on like the Sheep Pig, the kids book, right?
Yeah.
Like the way it is, and then Pig in the City is like madness, like, but the character stays true to his like heart and like the goodness of the pig, right? Despite all the insanity in that movie. Actually, by the way, Aaron, Dad, when he watched Pig in the City with the boys, he thought it was like kind of like he was like not shocked that the guy who made Fury Road made it, because he was like, it's so bizarre, but he also thought it was hilarious. He was laughing so much.
Yeah.
Miller is really like focused on that kind of like whatever the story at the moment needs, he kind of does, you know. And Anton, you know, the other Miller film that for me was like, the first time I saw it and I loved it, I didn't even know it was George Miller, is his Nightmare at 20,000 Feet sequence from the Twilight Zone movie, which is by far the best part of that movie.
Yeah, far and away. Like that's a masterful sequence.
It is.
John Lithgow.
It's so good. It's so good. It's like a 30-minute like film. John Lithgow's so good in it and has that insanity in it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
like,
it's one of the great horror
When was the
movies
last time you watched that? It's so good, yeah.
Like just that sequence.
And genuinely terrifying, the demon on the wing. So I appreciate his ability there, where he's like remaking, like, and the original episode's pretty good. Like the Shatner
it is.
but Miller makes it his own and just like amps it up so well.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I feel like Miller, even if he's never going to be my favorite filmmaker or anything, and Mad Max is never going to be my favorite series, he's such a unique storyteller, and like storytelling is the whole thing. It's the thing of the movies. It's the thing of his own approach, and it's that like unique authorial voice that lets you see the world with his eyes, or see the world through Max's eyes, right? Like in the movies themselves.
And I think, you know, the series then, it's the kind of series where it's like, I feel like people, even if they haven't watched a lot of the films, it has a presence in like pop culture, partly perhaps by establishing this like post-apocalyptic, or what we think of as visions of sort of like a you know, post-apocalyptic future where everything from The Last of Us, etc., is always kind of sort of borrowing from some of these things that you put on screen.
Or like a film like Book of Eli, remember that one?
Yeah,
Hughes Brothers?
yeah.
It's like basically a Mad Max movie.
Totally. With his desert setting, it could totally fit into a Mad Max type world. But it's sort of, I think we've talked about the importance of storytelling. And so this kind of like mythic aspect in this sort of, that is different variations and versions of stories, then it becomes like, you know, Mad Max becomes a cinematic way that we can sort of talk about and sort of visualize or figure like any sort of like post-civilizational state.
And it gave birth to something as good, Anton, as Waterworld.
Which we can never forget, which is the reverse. The reverse.
Just Mad Max on water.
It's just reverse. So like, what if there was too much water and not enough land?
But you could almost see like Dennis Hopper and the Smokers as being like characters out of Mad Max, right? Like
now like having rewatched them all, it's Waterworld, which is actually pretty good, is definitely just a Mad Max ripoff.
Smokers! Get out of the sun!
All right, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye, Mr. Bond.
I bid you farewell.